Well, as you guys know, here at Growing Boulder, we talk a whole lot about the opportunity of aging, the nearly limitless possibilities that are a part of this new age of active longevity. But these are only possibilities. They are only opportunities that have to be seized. And, we have to be active participants in our own overall health and longevity. And in a very real way, we are all our own primary care provider. We're the ones that have to get it done. Now, and the stakes can't be any higher. Multiple studies now show that 90% of adults want to age in place. We want to stay in our own homes. And the number one reason for that is a fear of losing our independence. And of course, independence is simply having autonomy, the ability to make our own decisions about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Independence is fueled by physical mobility. Mobility dramatically increases our quality of life. It has been directly connected to improved mental health, to our heart health, resistance to injury, greater stamina and strength, a reduced risk of complications from all chronic disease, improved socialization, and a whole lot more. So obviously, maintaining mobility as we age is critically important to our quality of life. And that's exactly why I'm anxious to speak with Dr. Emily Splichal, who is a world-renowned thought leader in the field of movement longevity. She's a functional podiatrist and a human movement specialist who looks at the whole body organically and tries to correct problems with a holistic approach rather than simply a scalpel. She is the author of Barefoot Strong. She's the CEO and founder of Naboso Technology, which is an innovative company whose products actually improve movement, performance, and recovery through sensory therapy and what's called proprioceptive stimulation. And don't worry, we will get that explained for us. Dr. Splichal is known to her many followers as Dr. Emily. She's actively involved in barefoot training research and education as it relates to athletic performance, injury prevention, and movement longevity. She has served as a consultant to many of the world's top fitness, footwear, and orthotic companies, and she has presented her research in over 40 countries to over 25,000 professionals. So it's an honor, and I'm anxious to chat with Dr. Emily. Dr. Emily, how you doing today?
I'm doing incredible. Thank you so much. And your intro, as far as people taking ownership of their health, resonated so authentically to me. So powerful intro.
Well, I appreciate that. And, it's let's start with Naboso, because I've read that it means barefoot in Czech. So what intrigues you about going barefoot? What is the science behind taking our shoes off?
Absolutely. So taking our shoes off, stimulating the nerves in the bottom of the feet is a really powerful way to access the brain. And what I was taught in podiatry school is that our feet are much more mechanical, that we have high arches, low arches, that we think of our foot as far as orthotics and supportive shoes. But what's often overlooked is the powerful sensory side of the foot, namely the skin in the bottom of the foot, which has special nerves. And our foot is designed to read each step that we take, to adjust to the ground and the surface that we're walking on. And in fact, that's actually what controls our movement. So the more that we feel the ground, the better our movement, the better our balance. And then, of course, that topic of movement longevity is very much linked into connecting, tuning into, and feeling the sensory side of our feet.
And obviously, Dr. Emily, given your background, your academic experience and accomplishments, you understand our feet from an anatomical perspective. But you have chosen, as you just indicated, to look at our feet from a sensory perspective. You practice what you call functional podiatry. Why is that?
So functional podiatry means that I'm looking at the body from a very integrated perspective. I factor in functional movement, so just the basic ability to walk and understanding the demands of walking. What is the experience from the foot, ground into our center of mass? I speak a lot with my patients about how we breathe, our pelvic floor, the coordination of our muscles, and then the integrated mobility that's required in our body. But I don't stop there, because functional medicine, and really the science behind functional medicine, is that it is person-centered medicine. I'm factoring in the stress, the emotions of the individual, their history, the quality of their sleep, their diet. All of that affects the way that we heal, the way that we connect to our feet, our ability to move. All of that is very much incorporated, and that's what you have to look at from a functional perspective. I also, as part of your intro, make my patients an active participant in their healing process, in their journey. I am the guider. I am not a body worker. I don't consider myself a healer. I'm essentially educating and guiding and empowering the patient to take their health into their own hands.
I love that. I've talked to other physicians who have a similar philosophy, and, they all say the same thing, that if the patient doesn't participate, the results can't be nearly dramatic. Given that you demand that your patients actually not just comply but participate, have you been surprised by what's possible? When you have a patient that will listen to you and apply what you have learned?
Absolutely. In between how I approach patients as a functional podiatrist to even integrating the Naboso products as part of that, is we've had profound responses for people who say they haven't felt their feet in 10 years and now they can feel their feet because I'm getting them out of their shoes. I'm stimulating their feet with these other surfaces or stimuli such as vibration platforms that they can actually feel their feet again. And it doesn't just stop at feeling their feet, but it's then the feedback as far as the movement, that they can go for a walk again. I mean, the stuff actually makes me very emotional hearing the stories of people who have had MS, who now have this new sense of independence, people with Parkinson's after stroke, even people who have had concussions after chronic ankle sprains, plantar fasciitis, anything that interferes our ability to move well and just move the way that we want to for baseline activities of daily living has a profound emotional effect on us. And we don't realize it until it's taken away. So I get to hear these stories of people who reconnect to the feet and what it has on a quality of life and that independence, as you said. And honestly, that's what keeps me motivated, is hearing those stories, knows that the way that I practice medicine and the products that I develop are genuinely helping people and changing their lives.
We're talking with Dr. Emily Splichal, who is a world-renowned functional podiatrist and the founder and CEO of a unique company called Naboso. And Dr. Emily, I want to ask you in just a moment about some of those products and why they work. But you just said something that made me remember a conversation I had with another major thought leader who is a physical therapist, and he told me, and it stuck with me, that typically if you're experiencing pain in one joint, you have to look at the joint before that to find the origin of it. In other words, if you got a problem with your knee, it may be because you have a problem with your ankle. And it makes so much sense, especially listening to you, that many of the problems that we have in terms of movement can be traced down to our feet, something that few people look at in the way that they should. Is that true?
Absolutely, 100%. So the body is very much interconnected. That's where the saying is the foot bone's connected to the leg bone, to the hip bone. And it is true. What is also important to understand is that every time we walk, every movement that we do, there's theoretically stress that's going through the body. Ground reaction forces will be the stress. If you don't have sufficient mobility or strength in the closest to the ground, here this would be the foot and the ankle, that stress has to go somewhere. It's going to find a joint, and it oftentimes goes one joint up, which means it would start to stress the knee. Or if it goes through the knee or there's an issue in the knee, it'll start to go a little bit higher. So this concept of transfer stress, and that stress will have to go somewhere, is important to understand. Also, fascially, neuromuscularly, our feet and our hips are very much interconnected. So glute strength, glute stability, hip stability has a powerful influence on the foot, and then vice versa. Any sort of instability or weakness in the foot will have an effect on the hip. So, and then what's stuck in between is your knee joint. So a lot of knee pain is really never in the knee. It's either in the hip or it's in the foot or it's in both. And it's the relationship to each other. And that integration is important for people, patients, to understand, because that's an important part of the ownership, is the education and the understanding of okay, my foot does influence my hip. And then I'll teach patients how to feel that movement when I see them. I'll take them through some foot movements, have them feel their hips and their pelvis so they can feel there for themselves that interconnection.
I try very hard and not often with success, not to jump to any conclusions about anything. But I have to tell you, when I see someone on the street, I immediately think I can tell something about their overall health, or at least their biological age, if you will, by their gait, the way that they walk. Is gait an accurate indicator of anything? And if so, can it be changed? Can it be improved? And if it can that affect our overall health and well-being?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So the way that we walk and the quality of our gait cycle is what it's called, is very much indicative of morbidity and mortality. And the marker that a lot of people will look at is walking speed. So the speed at which we walk has been demonstrated. Some people will actually call it the sixth vital sign as far as being this predictor of morbidity and mortality. And really what that means is to walk at a certain pace requires certain things happening in our body. And that's what I dive into with my patients. It's not just, I'm going to assess your speed, and if you're not fast enough, well, you better start walking faster. I really break it down so that the patient understands in order to walk fast, which is linked to longevity, you have to be able to do three things. The first thing is you have to be able to balance on one leg. Being able to stand on one leg allows you the ability to take a long step, which is what's linked to walking speed. So balance is required to take long steps and walk fast. The marker for single leg stability is 10 seconds. Can you stand on one leg for 10 seconds? If you cannot, that is a predictor of fall risk and therefore these other contributors to morbidity, mortality. So single leg stability is something very important that I focus on in my practice and really everything that I do professionally. The second aspect is to walk sufficiently, walk fast. You have to be able to absorb the energy from the ground and release it like a rubber band. So it's actually called elastic energy. And our fascia, our connective tissue in our body is literally like a rubber band. So we want to make sure that we are able to have a relationship with ground reaction forces and we keep our connective tissue hydrated. The third one is that we have to be able to go somewhere. So forward progression is a very important part of proper walking. And in order to go somewhere, to go forward, your foot has to be able to achieve what's called a rigid lever. So if you're sitting, essentially just put your legs into a calf raise and then look at your foot. And the position that your foot is in when you do a calf raise is called a rigid lever. It's kind of like the high heel foot position. That rigid lever is very unique to the human foot and what allows us to jump high, run fast, or walk the way that we need to. So if you want to walk fast to support longevity, you have to be able to balance single leg stability, find a relationship with ground reaction forces and keep your fascia like a rubber band. And then 3, you have to have sufficient foot strength and mobility to achieve that rigid lever. That's going to be the components of proper walking.
Dr. Emily, you understand the science behind movement longevity better than most. I mean, you designed, created, and patented the first ever commercial mechanoception material that supports our foot health. Can you explain what mechanoception is and how this material actually works?
So mechanoception, we'll just call this touch. So they are touch nerves that are found in the palm of the hand and the bottom of the feet. And touch nerves, mechanoceptors, are an important part of how we maintain balance, how we read the ground, how we understand how to absorb impact forces. So it's really the basis of balance and movement is the stimulation of the nerves, the touch nerves in the bottom of the feet. Now, one of those nerves happens to be sensitive to texture or 2-point discrimination, which is really Braille, or the best analogy would be Braille. So when your finger reads Braille, you are stimulating this very specific nerve. And that same nerve is what we stimulate with the Naboso products. And I'll show you that material. So you can see there's tiny little pyramids on the material. And in fact, on all of our products, those tiny little pyramids are mechanoceptive touch, texture, 2-point discrimination. So it's very specific. Sometimes I'll give the analogy, if you think of like medicine is very dialed in to a certain dosage, right? So the specificity to what you deliver to the body. Here it happens to be a certain milligram if you're talking medicine, or a certain frequency if you're delivering sound waves. That specificity delivers what we want on the human body and the nervous system. So the texture that we use is very specific, and that's where we get actually profound responses in people feeling their feet, balance, movement. And that's the way that I want people to always think about sensory stimulation, is that it's not arbitrary. There's very dialed in research specificity to what is delivered to the body.
Before we talk about more about your products, but while we're on big words that Mark doesn't understand, I also mentioned in the introduction, and I want to deliver on the promise that we would explain proprioception. What is proprioception? Do we lose it as we age, and why is it important for us to try to maintain it?
Another great question as far as the nervous system and movement. A lot of people will hear the word proprioception thrown around. If you've ever been to a physical therapist, maybe you sprained your ankle, they're going to put you on a wobble board or a thick piece of foam that's called an Eric's pad, and they are doing quote unquote proprioceptive training. Proprioception is your awareness of your body in space, but it's joint specific. So we have these nerves that tell your brain where your joint is in space as you're standing or moving. I'm showing my wrist, but imagine your ankle, because it's very powerful in the ankle for how you maintain balance. So the more that we can perceive a joint and a shift in a joint, we maintain our balance and our stability. I'll give you an analogy or a story that hopefully the listeners can connect to. Is imagine that you are walking and maybe you're on like a little pebble path, or you're stepping off a curb. And I think everyone at some point has done a little like whoop, right? Little bloop. And then you're like, whoo, okay, caught myself, right? That didn't sprain my ankle, but I felt a little wobble. What happened when you did bloop with your foot and your ankle is that you stimulated, you stretched these nerves that are called proprioceptors in the joint to then tell the brain that there was a shift in the position, and then your muscles contract to correct and keep you stable. That is one of the best explanations or understandings of proprioception. Now that's different than mechanoception, which is touch. So the bottom of the foot is going to be touch or mechanoception. The ankle is going to be proprioception or joint position sense. They work together to control how we balance and maintain movement.
So that's a whole lot inside an insole that you can put into your feet, but that's exactly what it is, correct? A mechanoception product that will facilitate proprioception. As you use it. Who uses these products? Let's start with the sole, since the insole, since you held those up. Who do you recommend them for? Is this something for everybody?
This is literally for everyone, because what we are establishing, and what's important for me as a functional podiatrist, is that the baseline level of foot strength, healthy movement, healthy balance is that we have to have an awareness. And people are so disconnected from their feet, they're disconnected from their body, they're disconnected from themselves. And I'm having a fight against the technology where people get disconnected, and we need to bring that connection back to ourselves. I start with the feet. So we need to feel our feet. If you want to move well for a long time, first step, feel your feet. So using something like our insoles is going to help you feel your feet better. And that is through the specific texture or pattern that we are using. You could think of this like Braille for your feet. Now we work with literally everyone, but the individuals that will notice the greatest effect on their movement and on their balance would be anyone over a certain age. So as we age, the sensitivity of our nervous system starts to decrease. The quickness of our nervous system starts to decrease. We've had 60 plus years in shoes, so we are just very disconnected from our foot awareness. So those individuals will notice and say, oh, wow, when I actually connect to my feet, I have this new awareness to my posture. I feel more confident with every step that I'm taking. Another individual that will notice great effects with our products is anyone who has had an injury to their nervous system. Maybe it's a stroke. Maybe they have neuropathy, MS, Parkinson's, spinal cord, concussion, TBIs. So this whole category of a injury to the nervous system. And then essentially what we're doing is we're feeding the nervous system with a stimuli to help it. We're guiding it back to where it naturally knows it needs to be. The insole is one great example to that. One other great example that I want to share is our socks. So the sock, this is the inside of the sock, and that same textural pattern is on the inside. So that's what's going to touch your feet. So you can then walk around. There's grips on the outside, texture on the inside. And as you walk around in your home, you're going to feel your feet more, which translates to balance, movement, confidence, performance, etc.
Talk to me just a little bit about the science, if you will, because I know you won't be able to get the international patents that you've got for these products unless there wasn't something unique and powerful about that. So, I mean, these are just not haphazard bumps that you've decided to put on an insole. I mean, what is the science behind the shape of the bumps on these insoles or in the socks, the distance between them? What's that about?
Absolutely. I would love to go there. So this is our neural ball, and you can see on there that there's a little tiny pyramids. So the reason why we use a pyramid is that the point, the acuity, I don't want to use the word sharp, but the acuity of the point is going to be able to go through the epidermis to the dermis. It's just the next layer of the skin. The point is going to make that indent a little bit easier into the dermis, the stimulus to the dermis. What's in your dermis is the nerves and your blood vessels. And we're stimulating both of those with the pyramid or the point. Now, also the distance. So I'm going to get really doctorly on this, but the spatial acuity of the nerve that we're stimulating, which happens to be called an SA1 mechanoceptor or a Merkel disc, is 1 millimeter. So the pyramid peaks cannot be closer than 1 millimeter. Otherwise, your nervous system will read it as like a blob. So we have to be a certain distance. But if we're too far, well, clearly your nervous system is going to differentiate those 2 points. What we're really doing here is, again, 2-point discrimination. Again, braille is the best analogy here. So yes, there is, and if you can see, I'm a little indent, so it's almost like I created little braille dots on my finger. So the ability to differentiate those 2 points feeds into the brain. The pyramid acuity goes deeper into the dermal layer to stimulate the nerves and the micro blood vessels. And then we play with very specific materials, and durometer means hardness. So the hardness of materials, the harder the material or the surface, the more stimulating to the nervous system. I'll give you an example. If you were to stand and walk and do movements on a hardwood floor, you would get more information to your brain than if you did those same movements on a wrestling mat, right? Or a pillow. Softer surfaces damp and take away information from your nervous system. So harder surfaces, harder stimuli, harder durometer, more stimulating, plus an acute pyramid, plus a distance that is very specific.
Perfect. I knew there had to be a good bit of that behind that, and you laid just enough on us. I appreciate that. You know, we always say that one of the keys to a successful old age is to start early. And this has been one of my frustrations with, with balance programs. We've had people come to us to ask if we could do a story and support it. And almost everything that we see is the local fire department, God bless them, that will show up to an assisted living home and try to work with older, frail adults who really have lost a lot of their balance. And, it's a no-brainer, folks, that falling is a bad thing. Falling and becoming injured will end your independent life, and the time to start working on balance and creating this connection that Dr. Emily talks about is now, whenever that is. And Dr. Emily, we've got a relationship with masters athletes, seniors athletes that I want to talk about that in a moment. But first, let's just talk about what in the industry is called ADLs, activities of daily living. And this is the thing that all of the experts talk about, that, we need to be able to continue to do if we want to maintain our independence, if we want to continue to have some sense of autonomy as we grow older. And, we're talking about walking and eating and, doing the dishes, dressing, showering, going to the bathroom, getting out of bed. How important is it to the products, to ADLs, how important to the activities of daily living are your products? How can they assist in that?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. A lot of the movement that we do during our day is just around our home, right? So it's getting out of the chair, going to the bathroom, cooking, cleaning, all of that there still has to be that same awareness. One thing that I really advocate for is that we need to bring a barefoot stimulation even in our home. A lot of people will wear shoes in their home, and unfortunately, a lot of those shoes have a high stack. So there's a lot of undersole, and then there's a lot of cushion. So there are things that are elevating your center of mass and then absorbing the perception, which is the cushion. So if we took away all of that stack and that cushion and became more sensorially stimulated, for me, I'm thinking of our socks, because one, there's grip, so you won't slip and fall in your home. But then as you walk around, you're going to get the textured stimulation so you can feel your feet. Now, a lot of people will look at falls in a home you'll look at intrinsic variables and extrinsic variables. And the extrinsics is you don't want to trip over the carpet, or if there's a random shoe in the floor, things like that you don't want to trip over. But this is also your perfect opportunity to think of the intrinsic. And one of the greatest contributors to falls in a home is a lack of awareness of your feet and the movement and the ground and how you're moving. Even if it is literally from the bedroom to the bathroom, you have to feel your feet. You have to feel your feet. And that means even in the middle of the night, if you have to go to the restroom, you have to feel your feet as you come out of the bed to the bathroom. And that is something that is not really being considered or taught or factored in when we look at falls in homes or independence in people's homes.
All right. I mentioned the athletes, which bugs me a little bit, because I maintain that we are all athletes. If you're a human being, you're made to move. And, we're not all great athletes, but we are all athletes. And we've done many, many stories on older athletes, senior games competitors. Your products have been used to this point by dozens of professional sports teams, world-class athletes, and Olympians. What products do they use, and is there application for your products with older athletes who could benefit maybe the same way?
Absolutely, 100%. So we work with literally every sport. So NFL, NBA, MLB, hockey, all these different sports. And then, of course, with the Olympics coming up, we have a great influx of Olympians who are now using our products. And this is all around the world. So not just US-based Olympians. All of them are looking at the importance of their feet, foot recovery, our neuro ball, which is the ball with the texture, and it splits into two pieces to release and stimulate the feet. That is an incredible one. And then, of course, the insoles and the socks are really great. Your feet is your body's foundation to movement. So whether you are a track athlete, obviously that makes sense because you're running, you need to connect to your feet. We work with pole vaulters. We actually work with some Olympic shooters, and the accuracy of shooting is also based off of your connection to your anchor, to your base. So regardless of your age, you can 100% benefit from connecting, building an awareness, building the strength to your feet, and building the recovery. And that's what I want people to think about with my name, is that I advocate foot awareness, foot strength, and foot recovery. And then the Naboso products essentially are a conduit or a product that helps along that journey of building awareness, increasing foot strength, and making foot recovery easy and achievable. Whether you're a young athlete, a master's athlete, you are just an athlete of life, which is the ability to walk around the room, then yes, you need to be thinking about your feet as well.
Are there any specific movements or exercises that you typically recommend to help people as they get older maintain movement longevity?
So one of my favorite exercises is called a forward lean, and this is a way to wake up your foot muscles. And what I want to emphasize here is that the power of foot muscles, a lot of energy goes towards our foot arch, right? So if you strengthen your foot, you will support your foot arch. I want to go even further than that. Where your foot strength really lies is in your toes. So toe strength. It's actually called toe flexor strength. So any exercise that teaches or incorporates anchoring or pushing your digits into the ground is going to optimize and really open up this cascade of foot stability. And that's actually what optimizes glute strength. So when you do the forward lean, is you are going to stand with your feet shoulder width apart. And if you want to join me as I'm talking through this, I welcome you. Feet are shoulder width apart. You're going to lift your toes, spread them nice and wide. You're going to find your foot tripod. So first met head, fifth met head, heel. Toes are lifted, spread, place them back down onto the floor. You're going to stand nice and tall. You're going to imagine that you are stiff as a board. Stay nice and tall, stiff as a board. And then you are going to ever so slightly lean your center of mass forward, but stay stiff as a board. So slightly lean and then bring it back vertical. Slightly lean, bring it back vertical. And do that one more time. Slightly lean, go back vertical. What should be happening, and what I want you to notice, is every time you lean forward, you should feel your toes go down into the ground. There's this anchoring reflex that happens in your digits, your toes, every time you lean your center of mass forward. It's actually a postural reflex, but it's an awesome way to wake up your foot muscles and your toe flexor strength. And I advise that my patients do this every single day, do it every morning. Then eventually, can you get to the point that you can engage your toes without doing the forward lean? So you just stand nice and tall, spread those toes, find the tripod, and anchor the digits and release. Anchor the digits and release. And then I incorporate this into single leg exercises, into squats, into other exercises where that eventually becomes a from the ground up technique for you to build stability and strength.
Love it. You know, there's no question that this is great preventative stuff. It's great prehabilitative stuff. But as we get older, Dr. Emily, as you know, we're prone to injuries more than we were than we were younger. How can Naboso products, or can they assist or facilitate recovery from injury?
Absolutely. So the thing that I want you to think about with Naboso and recovery is, let's say it's our sock, because it's called the recovery sock. So it's great to connect that with it. Here's what I would say is, end of the day, after a workout, after a run, you're getting out of your shoes. If you slide on our recovery sock, which again is covered with the pyramid texture on the inside, so that is what's touching your foot. These little pyramids, think of them almost like a mini massage, that these little tiny fingers are massaging your feet with every step that you take. That is a mechanical way to start to release the feet, is that massage component. Feels amazing. Second one is that you are stimulating the itty bitty blood vessels that are in your feet. Remember, I said the pyramids are sharp or acute to be able to go into that deeper layer. That's where your blood vessels sit. And an important part of recovery that is often overlooked is the circulation component. If you do not have good circulation to whatever part of the body you are trying to recover, you will not be able to sufficiently recover. So you got to get that circulation, get the toxins out, get the good back in circulation. So texture will increase that. And then, of course, you're also stimulating the nerves, which is really a great component as well. So recovery from a massage, release, texture, circulation, absolutely.
Okay, Dr. Emily, I'm fascinated by the neuro ball. I know it breaks apart. I'm not 100% sure what it does or why it's so effective, why so many people love it. Tell us what it does.
So the neural ball, which is one of our top selling products and is a really key component to foot recovery, foot activation, but also foot recovery, is the neural ball, which is covered with that same textural 2-point discrimination pattern. But what's really cool is that it's not just a ball. When you push down, so there's a seam that you can see starts to open. If you push your heel on that seam, it'll start to split, and then you have two domes. We actually have a design patent around this, and those two domes allow you to release both of your feet at the exact same time and create what's called pinpoint pressure. What was important to me in the development of this product is that I was actually thinking of the listener. I was thinking of the older individual, maybe someone who has neuropathy, Parkinson's, MS, and to stand on a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball or roll, that can actually be really unnerving and dissettling because you don't want to fall, you don't want to slip on something that's moving itself. So this splits into two stable domes that are not going to move. You can carefully stand on one or both at the exact same time and get that really effective foot release while simultaneously getting the textured stimulation. The other thing that I will tell patients or individuals is when we choose a product, whatever product it is or tool that we want to use with our body and with our health and our recovery, is we want to be really thoughtful. I call it checking the boxes. Is the more boxes that you can check, the better with it. So if I were to choose between standing on a smooth lacrosse ball or standing on a ball or domes that have texture, I'm going to get just much more out of my time, a better return when I do something with a product that just checks more boxes. So if you're going to release your feet, let's do it in a way that is pinpoint pressure. Let's do it in a way that's going to be safe for us. So these are not going to roll it around. And then let's do it in a way that you're going to get that textured stimulation to affect the nervous system and the circulation at the same time.
And tell me what you mean when you say release your feet. What is that and why do we want to do it?
So releasing the feet is going to be a word that I just interchanged for recovery. You could use massage. So thinking about massage your feet, roll your feet. Why I don't say roll and I use recover is that you actually get a better release or recovery if you stand or you do pinpoint pressure. This goes into almost like trigger point release work. Trigger point release, you're going to hold constant pressure on a trigger point and not an adhesion, and then you relax the nervous system to essentially let go that trigger point. That similar effect is what you're going after with pinpoint pressure. Versus if you roll, and I use the word roll the foot, you're not getting as effective of recovery.
Awesome. Let me try to connect two dots that may or may not deserve to be connected. As you know, there is just incredible interest these days in longevity. And I think to some extent that interest has spurred the growth of the supplement industry. Is there a connection? Does supplementation, do vitamins play a role at all in foot health?
Absolutely, 100%. And I am a proponent of high quality, well-tested vitamins and supplements. So obviously we understand there's a lot of not good players out there, but if you are using the high quality supplements, couple that I really like for foot and ankle health is going to be systemic enzymes. Systemic enzymes are a natural way to support the immunoinflammatory response in the body. And what's also great about systemic enzymes, which would include serrapeptidase, bromelain, rutin is one that's often in these as well. Quercetin is one that's often in the same category or coupled with systemic enzymes, is that a lot of them also cross the blood-brain barrier. So for brain inflammation, really, really good for that as well. But then nerve inflammation in our feet, our peripheral nervous system, they're very good for that as well. So those would be some examples. Another one that I really like that are nerve protective, and these ones do have quite a bit of research around them. Nerve protective supplements that increase nerve growth factor. That would be acetyl-L-carnitine, R-lipoic acid, and L-methylfolate. Those three have been very much researched around the neuropathy, nerve growth factor, neuritis space. So those are some that I will recommend to patients. And then one last one, when I have patients who will have nerve symptoms, restless leg, things like that, is I like GABA as a supplement, especially in the evening, because it is very relaxing to the nervous system. One that's not a supplement, but could maybe pique some curiosity, is the role of progesterone and what progesterone does from a calming effect on the nervous system. I see a lot of patients with neuritises and neuropathies and autonomic nervous system disruption in their lower extremity, and progesterone can be really good for them as well.
Final question, I think, but you never know. Something may else pop up. I think that I want to improve my body schema, but I'm not 100% sure what that is or how to go about it. What is body schema? Why is it important? And why do we lose it, or at least some of it, as we age?
I'm so glad you asked that. And I hope that all the listeners, that this is one of your new word key takeaways here is body schema. So body schema is essentially our perception of our body in space. Think of this like your mind's picture of your body in space. And what that is specifically is the size and shape of your body is imprinted in your brain, in your nervous system. So as we move and we relate to objects, we navigate external objects when we move based off of this mental picture of our size and shape in space, which is called schema, your body schema. An example of how you use this would be, imagine that you're in a crowded restaurant, you have to go to the bathroom, so you have to weave your way between the different tables and the chairs, and they're all moved in different distances from each other. So as you weave between the chairs, you are going to make a decision of, will you fit through the chair this way? Do you need to turn your body and kind of shuffle through the side? Or do you see two chairs that are close together and you're like, I am not going to fit between there? That is you subconsciously using your perception of your size and body in space. Now, what happens is the accuracy of our size and shape in our brain changes. We lose it with age. So mind-body connections, think about like meditation, Tai Chi, yoga, practices like that reinforce mind-body connection, are so effective with age because there's this understanding that mind-body connection is weakened with age. This is also where sometimes emotional regulation is weakened with age. All of these are just nervous system processes. So the way that you can practice your body schema is I will have people shut their eyes, and then I will have them visualize and see their head. And then I want them to see their neck, see their shoulders, and they'll work their way down their entire body. And as you see your head, I want you to feel it. So we go back and forth between, I feel my hips sitting in this chair, right? And if my eyes are shut and I feel my hips, I feel how wide my hips are. I then want to see the width of my hips. So we play between feeling and seeing to shape that mental picture, which is called schema. And another way that I work with patients is there's things that you can do to strengthen your schema. One great way to do that is to use compression apparel, weighted apparel, wrist weights, weighted vests, stimulate with vibration, dry brush, and then do this practice. Hold something heavy, have your feet on a Naboso mat. So you're doing something to uptick the sensory stimulation of your nervous system through your skin. Then you connect through your visual and sensory perception to strengthen the schema. But it is by far one of the most overlooked components to movement longevity, to balance, to fall reduction, is this perception of yourself in space. So many people don't have any idea where their center of mass is, how their posture is. Are they standing straight? Are they standing like this? And we need to reconnect to that in order to control our movement and to move well for a very long period.
Wow. Well, thank you for exposing us to the Dr. Emily glossary today. Yeah, that was fascinating. I love this conversation as it relates to everybody of any age, but most especially to aging adults, because these are the kind of things, despite all of the interest that there is these days about remaining, active and mobile as we age, these are things that you don't often, if ever, hear in the conversation. So, Dr. Emily, thank you so much. And folks, you really should check out Naboso. That's NABOSO.com to learn more about their products and to learn more about Dr. Emily and to take advantage of all that she has to share. Check out her website. That's dremilysplichal.com, DREMILYSPLICHAL.com. Dr. Emily, what a treat. Thank you so much for your time.